There are a lot of things that are on our mind as a nation right now. And in Sonoma County, we have a lot on our mind too, because probably you are among the many people who are thinking about the 1-year anniversary of a ferocious fire that burned thousands of family homes and other structures a year ago. Ever since those middle of the night emergency notifications, we've been busy. We've been busy helping each other and doing our best to find our way back, to restore and to regain that center of peace. And those fires took place it was the second weekend of October, the second week of October, which would be right when our annual Giving Intention program is every year. And clearly, we couldn't just go on business as usual, collecting and talking about giving during a time when lives were in danger and houses were burning and people were shocked. So, of course, we refocused to meet the needs of our community. We opened the center's doors to people who had been temporarily displaced. We collected donations to help those people who had been affected. We offered free spiritual counseling sessions to anybody who wanted them. We hosted free workshops by professionals who were attempting to help people with professional services. And the response of our centers for spiritual living all across the nation, and here locally too, was amazing. It renewed my confidence that ordinary people everywhere are capable of extraordinary acts of kindness and generosity in the midst of tragedy. October is our month of receiving giving intentions. And so this year, the Giving Intention team and I, we share a goal. And that goal is to regroup and to recover our program because we were impacted by it. And we want to recover by inviting everyone here, everyone in our community, back into participation like we used to be before the fires. And for that reason, when you came in, every one of you received a bulletin, and inside the bulletin, if you don't mind retrieving it, there is a giving intention form. There it is. Won't you take it out and wave it in the air? You see, because it's waiting for you to write your information on it. Now, when you do write your information on this card and turn in your giving intention card, what you're doing is you're telling us what your estimated giving, your contribution next year, 2019, will be. So it's not to be thought of as a bill or a contract or an invoice. It's an intention. What you're doing is you're giving your center leadership the information that they need to plan a budget and an excellent program for 2019. Now, when you turn in your form this month of October, of course, you'll receive 2 wonderful gifts, which I'll tell you about at the end of the message so I can remind you about them. Now, if you didn't retrieve the card and you're sitting thinking this doesn't apply to me and you know you're not going to fill in a giving intention card, I would love to hear from you. In fact, after the service, I'm going to stay right here in the front of the sanctuary so that anyone can come and talk to me, ask me any questions, or express their opinion because I'd like to hear from you. Okay? Yes, Edward. What's the use of being a cult leader if nobody listens to you? I have to be careful. I'm sorry if that was a joke, just in case you didn't realize that was a joke. Okay. Okay. Today's topic is God's bounty. Now, I'm going to assume, I imagine that most people who show up at a Center for Spiritual Living are interested in some measure in living a spiritual life, a more spiritual life with more of everything that goes with a spiritual life, more connection, more creativity, more compassion, more authenticity, more expressiveness, an abundance of all of those things, more abundance. And so whatever is getting in the way of that free flow of every good thing in our lives is worth looking at. It's worth investigate. And don't you know, sometimes it's those things, the very things that keep us stuck, that we don't want to talk about. For example, like money. The wonderful author Eric Butterworth, whose book we are reading this month, and you heard Jennifer Mann read from it this morning, he was very well known for his beautiful, deep teaching about affirmative prayer, which we studied the past 2 months, spiritual mind treatment. He also had a lot to say about the relationship between spirituality and money, and he said it in a very bold way. For example, he said that there is little likelihood that your life can become fully functioning with prosperity unless you have a positive and creative attitude towards money. Well, you know, it can be challenging these days to have a positive attitude towards money and wealth and the rich. In our Tuesday class about abundance, we're using this book, The Prosperous Life Journal, and I want to read to you from the introduction. We live in a world where systemic oppression and the wealth inequality gap are making it more difficult for people from socially disadvantaged demographics to live the American dream. The idea that anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps or that you can become anything you want falls flat on the ears of people who must work twice as hard as others due to their skin color, gender, or other identities. The internet has inserted us into the lives of our neighbors and co-citizens in a personal way, exposing the enormous efforts required to pay off student loans, buy a house, or gather the kind of wealth that our predecessors were able to accumulate. Today, the word rich conjures up an image of 10% of a population enjoying the majority of the resources and riches of a nation. Rich isn't a kind word anymore. It doesn't refer to shared access to abundance. Consequently, we, the authors, have edited the language of this second edition to refer to something more profound and more spiritual than hoarding wealth. We mean a different kind of wealth. The wealth born in a mind that knows that God is the only source, that knows giving is the mirror image of receiving, that knows generosity is essential to economic prosperity for all, that knows gratitude is the secret to unlocking the riches of life, and that knows that what we dwell upon grows. Because we cannot avoid the importance of learning about the role consciousness may play in shifting trends for an individual or a nation. The message of this book is that growing your awareness of your spiritual heritage is a viable option for everyone, no matter what their status in life. That progress is possible. That we are not destined to stay where we are. That oppression is not a divine idea, but a desperate plan in a mind that believes that prosperity can come only at the expense of another. The message of this book is also that freedom is the natural spiritual state of our being. Now, the stress of dealing with day-to-day survival, affording food and shelter, can displace doing inner work, which may seem like a luxury reserved for the few who can afford to sit around serenely and contemplate peace and abundance. But working in consciousness is more than that. It is a necessity for anyone who wants to move from wherever they are to a greater yet to be for their lives. Working in consciousness does not and cannot replace social justice. It augments it. Nor does it deny the very real inequalities of society. It remains crucial in this age, as it was in every age, to be reminded not to let anyone tell us that there is an idea or a power that is greater than God's truth about our lives. No matter your heritage, background, or education, you can start wherever you are to imagine a better future. You can, and perhaps must, expect the spiritual power of this creation to flow through your beautiful imagination to unleash an abundance of generosity and kindness and well-being for all, if you are to make a meaningful difference to life on this planet and help yourself and others. Now, it may not be easy to rise above the strong ideas in the group mind, but it is possible. And should we not depend on each other to do so and prove the authority of love over hate? Now, I remembered that when I saw today's topic, because I remembered, oh yeah, it's true. I do want to keep growing my consciousness when it comes to abundance. I do want to embrace abundance as the means for doing good in the world and helping this world work a little bit better for everyone else and to realize dreams. I do want to rise above those strong group mind attitudes about money. And don't you know, it's the hidden attitudes that keep me stuck. You know, the ones that I inherited from society and my family, and I didn't realize they were being implanted in me. And that's why they're called hidden beliefs, because they operate in me and I don't even know why. But they do show up in the way I think, the way I react, the way I plan, the way I act, the way I give, the way I receive. It's all in there. And in class on Tuesday, the class about abundance, we called out in the room all of the sayings, all of the idioms in English that we have about money. And almost every one of them was negatively framed. The love of money is the root of all evil. Money corrupts. Filthy rich. Money can't buy you love. Money can buy you love. Maybe you can think of a whole bunch of them yourself. These were the ideas that were fixed in me by the time I became a young adult. They were hidden in me. And they were ideas that were causing me to have a sort of standoffish relationship with money, especially when it came to giving. I tended to be cautious and suspicious. So I knew I had to learn something new. I knew I needed to do something to create a more positive and creative, a more spiritual attitude towards money and towards every good thing in life. And the first thing that I learned that really changed things up for me was that without a regular, conscious, mindful, awake, spiritual giving practice, I was never going to step into the full flow of abundance for my life. See, I didn't know that coming in. I was generous with my time, with my kindness, with my attention, with my help, but I had not connected it to my finances, and that was exactly where I was blocked. So today I'm going to share with you some of the ideas, 3 of them, that helped change my attitude. And the first idea is a very old idea, very ancient. It's this: as it is on the inside, so it is on the outside. It's not a new idea. It's in the Torah. The Bhagavad Gita speaks to it. It's in the Hermetic texts. It's an old idea that is here to remind us that things out here have their origins in things in here, individually and collectively. And the way I translate that, the way I relate that to this topic today is that if on the inside I truly and sincerely hold that money corrupts, why would I expect it to be flowing towards me in a rush out here? If on the inside, without question, I've accepted and I secretly, maybe even overtly believe that it's really important to get stuff, money, and to hold on. It's even more important than anything else. Out there, I'm probably not going to attract people who are super generous. Because who wants to be around that? So if in here, in my heart, I really hold, I believe, I've taken it in, that my self-worth is connected to how much money I have. Out here in the world, I'm likely to focus on getting it at any expense and holding on to it. And who's going to feel safe around that? As it is on the inside, is reliably connected to everything. So the deep spiritual wisdom of abundance teaching is this. Pay careful attention to your inner thinking about money and what it means to you. Pay kind-hearted attention to your attitude about the wealthy, about wealth, and what it means to you. Charles Fillmore, also a great teacher of metaphysics in the Unity School of Christianity, he wrote these words, which I'm going to read out of order. I'm going to read the bold parts first. Watch your thoughts when you are handling your money. At the bottom, never allow money of any kind or amount to pass through your hands without blessing it, whether it is coming or going. Why? Because in the middle, your money is attached through your mind to the one source of all substance that is giving or withholding according to your thought. You know, after I learned that, well, to this day, you won't catch me tossing coins aside as worthless. Oh no, I gather them. I love them up. You can count on me if we are out walking and I see a penny in the bushes, I will climb over a fence to get it. And then I clean it up and I make sure I circulate it. Absolutely. I always appreciate money no matter where it comes from, and I give thanks for it when it comes from wherever it comes. And I try to be really the same attitude with money going out no matter where it's going, to, see it as circulation. And you know what? I try not to hold on to any money that is owed to me. I think that in the past 25 years, I've only once got hooked. Almost every time I let it go. I talk to myself about money when I'm using it. I'll say to myself, for example, this money, this transaction represents my life energy and creative force. I'll say to myself something like, this money, this transaction represents my ability to choose and my freedom to choose and my willpower. Or I'll say something like, this money, this transaction is taking me, it's going where I cannot go. It's doing what I cannot physically do because I want to replace those tapes, the thinking of my inherited group mind about money with a whole new attitude that reminds me that everything in creation is made from and by God. Now that's the second thing I learned that set me free, that there is one creative power, not two. See, I was growing up, I think I was taught to separate abundance out from spirituality. Two different camps. Somehow I was taught to fear wealth for its potential to corrupt, while at the same time to yearn for it and seek it and work for it. To me, it seemed as if I was being taught that there are two creative powers, one governing the spiritual world and the other governing the material world. And that the way of getting wealth was entirely about how you worked the material world. Then Science of Mind came along and taught me there is only one power creating everything, and everything is made by it, from it, and that we have the freedom to use anything that is made in any way we like. In other words, we can use anything for good or for bad. So what I do with money is what makes it good or bad. And what I do with money comes from what is in my heart. So the first thing I had to learn was to think of money as neutral. You know, like the fires last year? You know, when a fire is warming our food, it's good. But when it's burning our house down, it's tragic. Or like Shakespeare's Hamlet said, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Right? And I knew I had a contradiction in my mind. I had to heal that. I had this come here, stay away from me attitude to money. And I remember this pivotal moment in a class in Science of Mind where the teacher was trying to make a point about the neutrality of money. And in a moment of frustration, she said, does anybody have any bills here in the class, any big bills? And somebody gave her a big bill, and she said, I'm going to put this money right here on the table, and I want you to keep an eye on it. Watch it. Let me know if it does anything bad. Or wicked. Or illicit. Or foul. Or if it tries to corrupt you. You know, I remember sitting there and something changed. I don't remember anything else she said. But I remember there looking at that money and for the first time realizing money doesn't do anything. It doesn't sing. It doesn't dance. It doesn't write poetry. It doesn't love unconditionally. It doesn't hug. It doesn't wink. Now, I can call it bad. I have that choice. I can tell other people to be afraid of it. I can say it's ungodly when in fact all it does is it just sits there until somebody does something with it and sets something in motion. And that got me to thinking about how I use my money. What am I setting in motion? What am I thinking about? And it got me to thinking about all of the good things I could do with the money I did have for the world, for my family, for my neighborhood, for humanity. And it started something in me. Do you know, to this day, even when I'm walking the dog Cooper through the neighborhood, I play this little game with my imagination. As I walk past the different houses, I imagine that I have unlimited resources and what I would do for each neighbor's front yard. I do. I said, I could fix that fence. I could do this or that. Because it's an attitude change I'm looking for. And that's the third thing I learned that set me free, that my attitude and intention determine the outcome. I had to learn that, when it comes to abundance, it's important. What is inside, Have you noticed what it says on money? In God we trust. It does not say, in money we trust. It does not say, in the economy we trust. It's very clear. In God we trust. Now, do you remember over the last 2 months, we've been talking about how important it is for you and I to get to grips, to get straight with what God is to us. We talked about what a mess we can make if we aren't clear and we start thinking of God as the vending machine in the sky that gives to some and withholds from others. We talked about how vital, how central, how important it is for us to get our relatedness with God clear. Now, you can go back and look at all the past 2 months' videos for free, or you can come to the Wednesday night class at 7 p.m. and continue learning about this. But it is very important that we get that clear before we go further into the spirituality that underpins abundance teaching. If you haven't straightened out your thinking about what God is, this can get superficial very quickly. So whatever, after your due process and research and investigation and editing, whatever God is to you, the message of money is trust that. Not the money. That's why it says it on the money. Some smart person must have realized we're going to forget. So it wrote it on the money. So I recommend you use that affirmation, personalize it. Every time you touch a dollar, say, "In God I trust." Every time you write a check, every time you pay a bill, every time you make a donation, every time you leave a tip, every time you save money, every time you share money, and if you use checks, write in the memo, "In God I trust," so that you develop an attitude towards money that reminds you of your trust in God. Now, do you see how important it is that you know what God is? See, you and I, we can't skip that setup. We can't skip the first lessons of metaphysics and rush straight to the lessons on abundance. Because true wealth is not about money or possessions. It's about experiencing and loving what God is. I know plenty of very rich people who don't have much money at all. And I know lots of people who have plenty of money who don't feel very rich. And at the end of our days, we humans, we don't typically say in the last of days, "I wish I had more money." We have a creation story in Science of Mind. Our creation story goes like this. In the beginning, God created everything out of itself and is continuing to do so. It created everything out of itself because there was nothing else to create from. And that which creates the universe out of itself does so on a lavish scale. Have you ever thought of that? How perfectly over the top creation is? It's extravagant. It's abundant. It's almost wasteful. Julia Cameron says so. The universe makes it pretty clear that creation itself doesn't know when to stop. There's not one pink flower or 50 pink flowers, but hundreds of different kinds of pink flowers, and snowflakes are an ultimate exercise in sheer creative glee. No two alike. Not to mention the reproductive system. I think of this as God's bounty. I think of it as God's generosity. And do you know, my entire life shifted and changed when I started to duplicate my activities, my choices, and my behavior, when I started to model it after God's example. Since the day I started giving with generosity, I have never looked back. I have not since then had the same serious problems with supplies like I used to. I mean, I could do with more money. Who couldn't? I've got a lot of good I want to do in the world. So I'm going to need a lot of money to do that. Right? But I no longer measure my self-worth by it. And I no longer compare myself to others who have more or less. And I no longer have a bad attitude about it. I still have challenges, unexpected expenses, etc. But what I don't have anymore is the belief that money is everything. Love is, and God is love, and in God I trust. Now, the key to fully unlocking your abundance potential is hidden in a very specific relationship between two key actions. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. For now, let's take a breath in and exhale. Contemplate for a moment in the silence of your own heart the phrase, "In God I trust." And let the next breath you take be deeper than the one before. And as you exhale,